Hello, I'm Shieldwall100 and welcome back to my channel. Modiphius have just popped back up on my social media feed with another upcoming project, this time a miniature skirmish game placed in their Cohors Cthulhu setting. It piqued my interest enough to follow, and just recently they released a prologue for free before their Kickstarter goes live, apparently at the end of May/early June. I thought I'd give it a try and let you know how the game plays. And here we are. I've set up a small, roughly 2 foot by 2 foot square on my gaming table for the purposes of this prologue scenario, the first scenario in the prologue of 3. As you can see, there's a handful of miniatures on the board, so let's start it. This starts with the Roman centurion Marius, or maybe if he's feeling fruity at weekends, Marius, I don't know, not here to judge. He has found himself isolated after his column of Roman legionaries has been ambushed by weird, unsettling creatures from out of the woods. Having staggered across the bodies of his fallen comrades, he's actually reached a clearing, and 3 of his panicked legionnaires are also here as well. Legionnaires is French Foreign Legion, isn't it? Sorry, legionaries. So there you go. The little dice here represents their fear value. Apparently units of troops or soldiers or whatever terminology we're going to use have a die next to them which represents their fear, which is a cool mechanic which I'm going to presume ties into the insanity of the Cthulhu mythos. And they set it as 3 because they're already kind of panicked, having just fought their way through a bit of an ambush, okay? And so that's where we start things, okay? In this starter scenario, we're going to learn how troops move, apparently, how some combat works, and how the turn structures, is basically held up. Right, well, let's see what happens next. In Cohors Cthulhu Tactics, there's 3 phases apparently. The action phase, which comes first, and there's the one we'll be focusing on in this scenario. There's also an end phase and a mythos phase, but I don't think we'll be doing them in this particular scenario. The action starts as the Centurion activates in order to, perform his actions. Apparently you get 2. And he'll get an action, and so will the legionaries, okay? But we're going to do Marius first. As he starts his activation, though, according to the scenario, loping out of the tree line come 3 distorted creatures wearing the bodies of former Roman legionaries, and snarling, grunting and howling, they approach the situation. Back to Marius. His first action is going to be to move, okay, which allows him to move up to 4 inches, and he does this, and in doing this he just goes to here and he joins the Roman legionaries, okay? So yeah, there we are. That's pretty easy. And when a hero, which is what he is, joins a unit which has a fear dice, he reduces that fear dice counter by 1 down to 2. So there you go. Right, that's that for this part of his activation. We'll move on to his second activation shortly. Having straightened up and girded the loins of his legionaries with his first action, he has his second now, and he can use the legionaries he's accompanying with him now. He is going to engage and charge the grotesque monsters in an attempt to eradicate them from existence. And so what he does is he engages the enemy, he moves 4 inches into them, as does his unit. I pre-measured, they are about 4 inches away to start with, so there we go. Nice and easy. Take the dice with them, and then there's a consolidation move where the other unit gets to move in as well, so just to make it nice and straightforward and cinematic and it looks nice. There you go. So the units are now clashing in close combat, and we'll do some die rolls, okay? Right, each of the Roman legionaries gets 1 die each because they have 1 attack on their profile, okay? And Marius himself has 2 attacks on his profile, so he gets 2. So here we go, here's the die pool. 3 white ones for the legionaries and 2 black ones for Marius the centurion, okay? Right, we're differentiating the colours because the legionaries have got a rule which means if they roll a 6 to hit on this initial die roll, they'll get 2 hits instead of 1, so that's why we'll differentiate. Marius at this point does not have that. In this simple scenario, he's quite straightforward. So let's roll the dice. We're needing to get 4s to hit. So there we go, Marius converts his, and the legionaries all fluff. Well, they obviously don't have that bit that makes them the Centurion yet. But we get 2 hits on the enemies. Okay, that means that we now roll to see if that converts now. So the servitors of Mormo, which is what these horrible creatures are, they have a save of 5+. So I'll just take 2 of these spare white dice. Every 5 or 6 will save a hit. Oh, well, Marius himself doing pretty well. So we take off 2 models of, well, our choice from the unit, enemy unit. You can usually start at the back. They're all in combat, so we'll take off this one because it makes most sense, and he'll just like lean across and wipe this one off as well. Okay, so they've done 2 hits on the enemy unit. Now, in Cohors Cthulhu tactics, if you engage, once you're fighting the Mythos, they fight back, of course. The Abyss stares back into you, shall we say. So the Servitors will strike back at the same time. So there's 3 of them, and they each have 1 attack each, so we have these handy 3 white die. And they hit on a 5 or 6. So here we go. Nothing. Okay, well, that's that then. Can't argue with them dice rolls. So the legionaries definitely win, and they push back the horrible monster 2 inches. So I'll just pop it back there. Okay, and that concludes the action for the turn. Okay, well, for Marius, that is. He's joined a unit and he's charged them into combat with the enemy. Okay, so that's how the basics of the turn works. It's very straightforward at this point. There's a lot of interesting rules to come, but the basics are really straightforward, which is always a good sign in a war game. Next up, it's the Mendaxius' turn, and Mendaxius is a term for the artificial intelligence used by the enemies in this game. Not sure exactly what it stands for in Roman or Latin, but yeah, it's Mendaxius. So when Mendaxius goes, it's only got 1 unit to control. It has a little yellow, red tiddlywink, which I forgot to put out. Because they took 2 hits, if you recall, from the round of combat against the servitors, the enemies, that was more than half the number of models in the unit, being 3, and so they become staggered, and that's what the tiddlywink represents, for want of anything better as a marker. Now, being staggered means that it gets less actions in its turn. Normally, a evil enemy Cthulhu-based unit will get 2 actions, same as you, or their equivalent. If they're staggered, they only get the 1. So it's pretty straightforward what this 1 action is going to be. For the purpose of this, there's a little flow chart sort of thing for more complicated situations, but this creature is going to charge back into combat. There you go. And once again, you get to do your... There you go, the consolidation. I'll take off this staggered token because it doesn't really need it anymore. And it gets 1 round of combat. Now, the interesting thing about this, which I found, is that when the Mendaxius' units attack, they get to fight, but unless you do something about it yourself, your units do not fight back automatically in this game. There are several reactions to being charged that you can have. It all comes down to the fear die. So the one option is just to hold and take the attacks, in which case your fear die does not increase. Another thing you can do is defend, sort of put your shields up and defend back, which increases your save by 1, I believe. I'll just double check that. Hang on. Yes, your save rating improved by 1, which would mean that these guys save on a 3 or more instead of a 4 more, which is pretty damn good. Finally, which is the one we're going to do, is going to counter-attack, which means I have to increase my fear by 2, up to 4. It maxes out at 6, but and that allows me to hit back, okay, at the same time as the enemy. Okay, so we're aiming to finish off this beastly burden once and for all. But we're going to use the servitors' attacks now. It gets 1 die. It hits on a 5 or 6. Let's just check that. Yes, it does. 5 or 6. Here we go. Oh, it's hit. Okay, so there you go. First hit on the Roman legionaries, and going to take the hit on a legionary because, well, they're the same save as Marius, so it's all 4+. So we're going to roll. Oop. One of the guys, it fastens onto his throat and tears a big old chunk out as he goes. But yeah, we fight back at the same time. So we have 3 legionaries and 2 for Centurion Marius. And here we go. Once again, Wow, it pays to be a centurion, obviously. Maybe the legionaries are just stepping back and letting him do his thing. But, okay, there's that. And 2 saves of 5 or 6 required in order to save this servitor. Oh, close, but no cigar. The servitor buys the farm. Defeating a Mythos unit reduces the fear on the unit by 1. And that concludes the scenario. The scenario was that Marius had to defeat one particular unit while staying alive, I believe, and he's managed to succeed in doing so. So there we go. That concludes the first scenario, and we'll move on to the second one shortly. But yeah, pretty straightforward stuff. Gets a little bit more interesting soon though, I assure you. We get some archers coming in and some different types of enemy units which will be spawning around the board. Okay, right, I'll be back shortly. For this second scenario, we rejoin Centurion Marius. He's actually managed to gain a few more allies along the way, a small unit of auxiliary archers, and he's topped himself back up to 3 legionaries with him. Okay, his mission is to fight his way through the woods. He has to defeat at least, well, at least 2 Mythos units have to be defeated, and he has to finish a turn within 4 inches of the opposite board edge. So a bit of a breakthrough kind of scenario for this one. There are no Mythos units on the board. That's not what's happening. We're going to be exploring something called the spawn pool, which is these three little tiddlywinks over here in yellow. Those will be used to bring on enemy units as we activate the legionaries, etc. Okay, so we're going to go into the first activation now. What we do is, in the action phase, we pick one of the 2 units. We'll go with the archers, for want of a better thing to say. And what we do is, because there are tokens in the spawn pool, we take one of them, put it to one side, and what we do is, there's a chart which I can't really bring up for you now, but it's in the Prologue, which is a downloadable file, which you absolutely can. I'm going to roll 2 dice and we'll see what appears. So it's a 5. Well, reading that off, that means nothing appears this turn. You need to get a 6 or more for enemy units to turn up. Yeah, bazinga. So what happens is nothing actually shows up. So we've got 2 actions to take with these guys here, and it's not an awful lot you can do. As you can see, that both units have got 1 point of fear. Oh, we also have a new concept to explain. As you can see, close order, which is where you set your units up in a line like this. It gives them various little benefits as the game goes on. There has to be at least 3 models in the unit to do so, but yeah, and they have to be in close order like this. For generally speaking, for fighter units, it gives them better protection, and for shooter units, better shooty. So there you go. Okay, we're going to move them up and to the middle. Okay, and I think that will be their activation. I don't think they're going to use their second one. I don't want to get them too far away from their buddies, but that basically concludes the first activation. Not particularly exciting, but tense. Right, let's move on. The second unit to activate and final, it will be Marius and the legionaries. So we choose him, we then roll, we remove one of the 2 remaining spawn tokens, and we roll on the chart a double 6. Okay, from the sublime to the ridiculous. Now, 2 6s gives us spawn to something called Teufelshunter, which is German, and we're using these. They look like mini Hounds of Tindalos in the background, which, if anyone wants to know what they might look like, but we're going with these 2 gribbly creatures here, which look kind of hound-like. So they appear. First of all, we determine a direction. It'll be from the legionaries. A 5, which actually indicates they're going to this side, and it'll be 6 plus 2d6 inches away. So I'm not sure they're going to fit in here, but 11. So that's 5 plus 6, yeah, 11. So let's see if we can do this. It'll be over here, which is off the board. We're going to sort of move them up sort of this direction for the purposes of this. So they've appeared over here, and they're about here. Okay, so 11 inches away from the nearest model. There they go. So that's where they are. So now the Romans have got something to respond to in terms of threat. So there we are. 2 actions for the legionaries. They're just going to do 2 movements, I think. So yeah, They're going to move up and continue on being beefy boys. Okay. In fact, they might as well turn to face, like a little bit like that. Their shields ready. Right, now we go to Mendaxius, which is the Mythos unit's turn, and we'll have a look to see what they're up to now. There's a very simple artificial intelligence for doing this. First of all, if the unit just spawned, it's the one that activates if you've got multiple Mythos units, and of course there's only one. So we're going with the Teufelsjunta. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's fun to say regardless. They activate, and the first thing they'll do, they'll check to see if they're within 4 inches of Marius's unit. They're not, so we'll go to the next thing. Well, basically we carry on going down this really simple flowchart. They're going to react by moving towards Marius's unit. Now, these guys do have a charge range of 6 inches rather than 4 because they are hounds and it's their special rule, but I did check, we're about 7 inches away. So for their first action they have 2, like the Roman units. We'll just put them about here. For their first action, it's approximately 3 inches away. And they now do the same flowchart for their second action, and they are now within charge range of the Romans, and so in they go, snarling, crying, and generally being scary dairy. Okay, that's that. We are now going to go to a combat which works exactly the same as the one before. First of all, the Romans have to choose their reaction. They could hold and maintain their fear, but they're actually going to do a counter-attack which costs 2 points of fear, and that allows them to attack back, as you remember. Okay, now one interesting thing, close order formation whilst they're in it. First of all, it allows Romans to ignore failed armor saves of 1. But also, if they're in close order and do a counter-attack, they actually get their round of attacks in first, so I'm hoping that will help them to dispatch some of the attacks coming their way. Rather than the attacks being simultaneous, they'll now actually be able to beat the living death out of these horrible, monstrous Mythos Hounds, okay? Because, yeah, the Mythos Hounds are quite scary in combat. Right, so here we go. Although they do have 2 wounds each, so we'll see how it goes. First of all, we roll the dice. Once again, it's 1 attack per legionary and 2 for Marius. And here we go. Oh boy, yes, well, it's a customary 2 hits. We didn't do all-out attack, which would cost another point of fear before we rolled, so we don't get 2 hits for the legionary or for Marius there, unfortunately, but we do get 2 hits on the hounds. Now they make their saves, which are 5+. So here we go. If both of these fail, we kill a hound. They do fail. So not only is a hound passed on, but also don't forget 2 hits is enough to count as this. So just going to take a quick break, and I'll be back with you shortly to do the hound's attacks back. So having dispatched one of these evil devil dogs, the Teufelsjunta, though remaining, will attack the legionaries back. It has 1 attack and it hits on a 5 or 6. So here we go. That is not a hit, which is lucky for the Romans, because should a Teufelsjunta hit, it doesn't attack in the normal plane of existence, so armor doesn't actually do anything. It instead goes on a different statistic called grit, which is worse for the legionaries. It's a 5 or more instead of a 4 or more, but no hit equals no problem. So the Teufelsjunta lost the combat, so it goes pushed back a couple of inches. That'll do. That's a bit far. There you go. And that concludes the activations for the Mythos unit. So we're going to go back to the action phase now. If we check the end phase, currently there's nothing going on in terms of victory conditions or whatnot. So we're going to go back now to the action phase. So we're going to start off with Marius and his blokes again. He's got 2 actions, but before that we check the spawn thing. So we roll 2 dice on the spawn table. That's a 10, and that is 3 Ghouls of Mormo. So yeah, so there we go. That is, I'm using Games Workshop Ghouls for the purposes of this, because they're Ghouls and it makes easy sense. So aligning the spawn thing, so we have, what is it, on a 3 it's straight up, on a 6 it's straight backwards, and then other numbers go different directions. I'm going to roll a die to see which direction they approach you on. We've got a 6. They're coming from directly behind. They snuck around behind and they go back. Come on, 2d6 plus a 6 away. So 8 plus 6, 14 inches behind the Marius and his little friends. So yeah, need to put this up to 14. So I'm going to say they'd sort of come on at the very baseline, to be honest. It's pretty straightforward. So here we go. And they turn up, and yeah, scary things these. They hit on 6s, which isn't particularly powerful, of course, as you can imagine, compared to the other things that the Romans have been dealing with. But if every casualty they cause does 2 hits, so it does 2 wounds, so that's pretty scary in itself. So yeah, best to deal with these guys. Right, of course, none of my specially handcrafted servitors of Mormo have turned up, making me feel good about my efforts today. But yeah, so back to the Centurion. So first of all, they're going to do an action called Bolster, which means they shrug off 1 point of fear, because I am keeping an eye on that counter. It does help. And the second thing they're going to do is Engage, and they're going to go straight back into the Hound. They're going to try and finish it off before it has a chance to regroup and do stuff about them. Okay, so it's a simultaneous combat once again. However, we're just gonna hope the Hound misses. So let's do the Legionaries and Marius's attacks first. So again, same old, needing 4s with all these. That is 3 hits, lovely jubbly. Again, didn't pay for the 1 point of fear it would have taken to do all-out attack, so that's only 3 hits instead of 4. But hey, let's roll these dice again, needing 5s or 6s to save for the Hound. There are no saves there, so the Hound will buy it. It does attack back first, so 1 attack on 5s or 6s to hit like last time. Yes, and it's a 5 or 6 to save, as I discussed in the last take. Also, and here we go. Come on. Yeah, Rome Victor. Well, almost. So yeah, killed the Hound, no damage. Yay. And we'll take off that staggered token as well. So that's good. Killing a Mythos unit reduces their fear by 1, because you just killed a Mythos unit, so you must be feeling pretty pumped after all that. And that's that. We're going to go now to the Archers activation. Yeah, here they are. So Archer's activation. Let's roll 2 dice on the spawn table. So we've got 1 spawn counter left. It's actually, you made a slight mistake. It's only when units spawn do they put a counter in the pool. So there you go. So let's see. Does anything spawn? It's a 5. Once again, that is nothing from the Archers. Be pretty blessed life for them, although they do have these nasty ghouls to deal with back here. So what we're going to do is we're going to move them 4 inches or so, keep them in close order. Yeah. And then they're going to do what's called a loose activation, which is basically, for all intents and purposes, it's a wargaming shooting activation. Range 16, we know that these guys are in range because there were 14 behind the Legionaries, so there you go, easy peasy. Range 16, it's 1 shot per archer, and normally they'd require, I believe, 5s or 6s to hit. Yes, they would for shooting. However, let's see. For 1 extra point of fear, which they'll take, they will re-roll any dice that roll a 1 to hit, and whilst they're in close order formation, they automatically hit on a +1, so get forced to hit, re-rolling 1s, okay, against these here horrible ghouls of Mormo. Well, there's a 1 and there's a 4, so those 2 rules are immediately coming into effect. Let's see. 2 4s. Yes, that's 2 hits. Lovely. Right, the ghouls have a save of 6, so let's use these black dice. And dear oh dear for them. 2 dead ghouls. Bang, bang. Or whatever you want, noise effects you want to make. Cool. Well, that's not bad. And that does stagger them, because they took 2 hits when there's 3 models in the unit, more than half. Therefore, they stagger. That means they only get 1 action in their turn. So, good stuff for the forces of Rome. Okay, let's go to Mendaxius' phase, because both of the Roman units have activated. Okay, well, nice and simple. The Mendaxius activation is just the ghouls. It's the only unit they've got left, and it's staggered, so it only gets 1 action. So it's just going to move 4 inches up the pitch to about there. towards the multiple Roman units, it's really rather clear. The stagger token comes off, and then finally we put one more spawn token in the spawn pool, and that's it. Back to the Roman activation. This is quite simple, isn't it? Romans are going to start with the archers once again, because it's fun. And we're going to roll to see what spawns. Wait, come back dice. That is a 9. Pardon me, a 9. So that, I do believe, is Ghouls again. Now, the Ghouls are already out, so it immediately moves up the chart. So we're having the Hounds of Cthulhu back again. What are they called? No, Teufelshunder. There you go. Teufels, maybe. Anyone who speaks German might be able to enlighten me in the comments. And yes, let's see where they turn up, which direction. They're coming on from 4, which is kind of diagonally that away. And they're coming on 2d6 plus 6, 8 plus 6, 14, handily. It's kind of up there. We're going to bung them in the corner up there. So the rules are quite simple for this. They can't be within 2 inches. They've got to be on the board. They can't be in impassable terrain, and they've got to be further than 2 inches away from any Roman units. So yeah, makes sense. All right, so that's that. More monsters lurch out of the woods and the dark, but we return now to the archers, who are going to take one bolster action, because I always keep an eye on that. And they will just do a normal shoot action, loose action at this lone ghoul, try and kill it off. So here we go. Now note I didn't spend 1 to re-roll, add a fear in order to re-roll the 1, so that one misses, but 1 hit. Okay, and that means the save is not passed, and so the ghoul is doomed, dead. Ugh. And I think that is the mission condition for the Romans completed, because they had to make it so that they were within 4 inches of the opposite board edge and have killed 2 Mythos units, so looks good for them. So we're going to go now to the Legionaries, and I'll just do them in just a sec. Okay, yeah, so Legionaries are up. Roll the spawn die. 11! The Hounds of Tindalos again. Teufelshunder, sorry. Right, wow, rolling really high on the spawn dice or nothing at all. Those servitors of Mormo really don't just, yeah, they're hiding because I'm so good. That must be what it is. In the event that we roll too high, we'd normally, roll on something we would have gone to the next highest entry. There is no higher entry than these Teufelshunder, so what we do, instead of putting one, apparently you just put another spawn token in the spawn pool. Hurrah. So that's that. Right, so the Romans are gonna just power it up the board. I think we'll just do 2 moves of 8 inches. Yeah, to get up there. Yeah, right in your face, Hounds. Right, or Teufelshunder. Yes, in close order. And this should probably see them out for the purposes of the game, but we'll do them in Daxius' phase last. And I'll do that now. Let's just keep going. Here we go. These guys will charge, and that's them in. So the Romans will spend 2 to counterattack, which means that they'll hit first before the Hounds go. So here we go. Let's just take 3 dice from here and 2 for that. And you know what? Let's spend. I think we can do that now. All-out attack as well. So there you go. Oh no, it's only on a charge activation. This isn't one. This is a counterattack. So can't do that. Never mind. Right. So here we go. Forced to hit. This is getting familiar. 2 hits only from Marius, so 2 saves from the Hounds. Neither passed. Okay, well, at least we're being consistent. 1 dead Hound who doesn't get to fight, and the remaining one is staggered, which I will just do. I have to reach over and grab a tiddlywink because I forgot to bring any with me. There we are. It hits back. It misses. It gets beaten back 2 inches, and I do believe that concludes the turn. So Marius has fought his way to within 4 inches of the opposite board edge. At least 2 Mythos units have been killed, about to be a 3rd one, I suspect. And that concludes scenario 2. The Romans have victoriously managed to do it with some aplomb. Actually, didn't lose a single model. Bit of luck on my part for that one, but there you go. They weren't massively overwhelmed. Obviously, some more dangerous spawn rolls would probably have seen more enemies rock up, and that would have added extra, spice to the mix. But this game gives you an idea of how to manage your fear. Incidentally, you can't go above 6 fear. If you get to 6 fear, the only action you can do is bolster to remove it. So don't let it get too high, or otherwise I suspect it will start biting you in the butt at awkward times. But there you go. That's the first 2 scenarios from the prologue. Perhaps I'll go into the third one in this video, or maybe I'll split it off into a separate one. I'm not sure. I'll probably split it off, otherwise this one will overrun. But yeah, there you go. That's the first 2 scenarios in Cohors Cthulhu Tactics, and it's pretty good. I do rather enjoy it, and I do like some Cthulhu, and it gives me a chance to reuse some models I already had. Anyway, I'll stop wittering on now. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Any questions, pop them in the comments below. Otherwise, keep an eye out for this Kickstarter coming up in May/June 2024. And I'm Shieldwall100, and I'll see you in the next one.